Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Len Lonzi. I'm the Managing Director of the Preccelerator program. We are the venture capital arm of Stubbs, Alderton, and Marklees, and we work with pre-revenue startups in our accelerator. And today, I'm excited to feature one of our mentors, a new friend of the Preccelerator, going back, I guess, a COVID friend of the Preccelerator. That's how Tony and I got acquainted. And he is going to present today on some great information on how startups can manage their way into international markets. And that's his area of expertise. And I'm not going to go too deep into Tony's background. I'll let him tell you all about himself. And with that, Tony, why don't we get started?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Len. My name is Tony Cristiano, and I'd like to thank Len and the whole Preccelerator group for allowing me to present today. It's really nice to see familiar faces in the audience and people I've known for a long time. And for those of you I haven't met yet, it's a pleasure. And our experience at Pivotal Arc is in software and digital media technology. And scale up and start up in that sector is a little bit different than some of the other sectors. In many ways, it's a wonderful place to get started. And we see an endless number of opportunities, and we'll talk about that. It's just incredible what's possible with software and digital media today. It's not easy, especially at the beginning. There's some common failures that we'll get into. There's a right way and a wrong way to start up, and we'll get into a little bit of that. And I do have some mentor hours and office hours at Preccelerator coming up on Thursday. So we'll have an opportunity to continue the discussions today. And where we don't cover things that are unique to you, please feel free to email me anytime. So I hope the audio is good and everyone can see my slides. Send a message if you can't.
Your slides are not up yet, Tony.
What's that?
Are you sharing your slides right now?
Let me do that. Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm glad I checked. Can you see my screen yet?
Not yet.
I'm going to stop sharing and then I'm going to reshare.
It did work earlier.
Yeah, it did work when we tried it earlier, right?
Shared content, fit your screen to see original size, click original size.
It says from my side that you are sharing your screen.
I'm sharing my screen?
No, that I'm sharing mine and it's working here on Zoom.
Huh. Does anybody see it? Because I don't.
Yes, in my case, I can see the slide.
Yes.
Yes,
In my case too.
Okay.
Yeah, I see the opening slide.
All right.
Okay, so
I got it.
all right, perfect. Okay, so just to let everyone know that there are some mentorship hours that are coming up on Thursday, and I have a slide on that. And you know, most of the folks in the audience, those that are going to hear it after it's recorded, are mostly going to be startups. Some of the companies are scale-ups, and most that'll be listening to this have some sort of software or digital technology, or they're finding that their business is being driven substantially by software or digital technology, and that'll accelerate over time. And many are serious about entering either a new market, an adjacent market, or a USA market. And everyone's journey is unique, you know, in one way, shape, or form. And a little bit about us. As I said, we focus on software and digital media. We focus on scale-ups for the most part, where we help with startups. We do it as a free mentoring service. to help people get started in their businesses. And we focus on new adjacent and USA market entry for the most part. We're a fractional business development team. And our difference really is that we've spent a lot of time in the software space, from artificial intelligence, deep learning, computer vision, and smart solutions. We're hands-on in terms of reaching out to real prospects and customers with our startups and scale-ups and building flagship sales and market traction. We have 25 years of experience where we've built a proven process and refined it, and then decades of functional experience, either in business development, marketing, or sales. And we've held positions as CEO, Chief Operating Officer, Finance, Engineering, and Programming. And so through our entrepreneurial and our corporate experience, we know what can be executed and what's more difficult to execute. And we've presented and received many investment pitches. So just very briefly on our services, we support owners and CEOs, and our services have been built on a proven process. We verify that a real market exists, and we look at the market problem that you're trying to solve and the innovation or the idea, how you're going to solve it. We verify through market research and interviews, voice of the customer kind of work, and through focus groups where we get them together and in a very systematic way that we've done over and over again, have them share the problem and talk about the solution in their own voice so you can hear it. We test the market entry approaches, and as well, we help build the right prototype and the minimum viable product, or at least coach on how firms can do that. And then we roll up our sleeves and we actually help with closing flagship sales and building the critical evidence of success for the traction. And then also help with investment pitches, building channels and scaling, and ultimately supporting the leadership team on their scale-up journey. That's fairly unique in many cases. So what's exciting for me, and I know many of you, is that the opportunities in software and digital media are really endless in many, many ways. Think about how big this marketplace is. In the US alone, it's 200 billion, and far bigger when you look at the worldwide numbers. And at the same time, the startup costs are incredibly low. Think about what you need. We need a laptop, an internet connection, and a garage or a room. And when you combine that with what's happening, the pace of technology has been accelerating incredibly just in the last few years. Artificial intelligence, deep learning kinds of networks are accelerating the rate of computing incredibly just in the last few years. Computer vision technology, where cameras can see everything, people, faces, behavior, objects, colors, and they can tell you what's going on and be your eyes and ears. Big data and IoT technology, where you have intelligent IP or internet connected devices everywhere, sensing things and feeding information back. Low code, no code ways to do prototyping and build products incredibly quickly, so and at low risk. And then right in the middle, you have what's called bot technology. So if you have any kind of alert, any kind of notification, or anything you need to glue together in your particular area that you want to solve or your domain, the bot technology is allowing people to do incredible things. And the other evidence is that the investment appetite is incredibly large, and that's evidenced by the flow of venture money and venture capital. So a really, really exciting opportunity, and that's why many of you are in it. for these opportunities and the excitement of where we're going and what we're going to do next. So why do entrepreneurs start businesses? So think about where you are and think about your business or your client's business. I know some of you are partners and advisors yourselves. So think about why you or your client started your business. For some of you, it's the freedom to do whatever you want to do. Maybe some of you, your employer didn't give you credit, didn't recognize your skill, so you picked up and left. For some of you, the hope for more compensation, following a passion, or controlling your own time, and a lot more. And your reasons are unique and your business is unique. But this entrepreneurial spirit is alive and well for sure. And same reasons for why companies want to scale up. They've gotten some traction. They want to enter a new market, an adjacent market, come to the United States for the market here from Spain or Italy or China or all over the place. And, you know, some of you are looking for the next round of funding or to exit or whatever your motivation are. Your reasons are unique and your business is truly unique on why you want to scale. But the reality is that many startups fail. Many of you have heard some of this. Why? Firms run out of money, they get outcompeted, or there's no market. And we'll dive a little bit deeper into this and the root cause. But many, if you look at the underlying reason why they ran out of money or why they got outcompeted or there was no market, is because they failed to really solve a market problem that needed solving. And McKinsey had a very interesting observation that many entrepreneurs, many owners, many CEOs fall into a confirmation trap or a confirmation bias. They're out to confirm their hypothesis and what they think the market needs. And that's a trap for failure, unfortunately. And many just simply don't have the discipline or the proven process to collect the evidence of success they need before they invest too much money or too much time. So let me get into very briefly some of the common mistakes before I get into how to consider doing it. The key thing is, you know, as innovators and entrepreneurs, we just want to get to it and we just want to do it. It's counterintuitive, but we have to resist that. Many quit their jobs, and many of my friends and some of your friends can tell many stories of people that had well-paying jobs and they just went off and built the product, and then months, and in some cases, years later, they realized there's no need. So it's very important to listen to what customers are saying by asking them questions, open-ended questions and non-leading questions about what they need. Test the assumptions and then retest the assumption and retest the assumption again. And focus on a few representative prospects and customers. Don't try to scale. Many try to scale too quickly without really examining what's going on. And deep down as humans, we don't want to have the discipline. Some don't have the discipline to do their homework, and it's a human tendency. And yeah, at the end of the day, they've realized they've built something that nobody needs and they're out of money, or they are not quite there yet. So those are some of the common mistakes. And our 7 imperatives is really a guide that's based on many years of experience that are some of the big items to consider in starting up and scaling up and making sure you're attractive to get funding. And the number 1 is to assess the problem independently. We have a CEO or an owner bias. to go validate what we think is out there, but it's important very often before spending a lot of money and time to assess the problem independently. And that's grounded in customer. So the question I ask is this coming from the customer or is this coming from me? Is it my passion to solve it? Am I thinking about how to solve the client's solution unique? Is it innovative? And is the idea unique in terms of the way I'm going to solve it? Or someone solved it this way. And it doesn't have to be incredibly innovative. It just has to be quite different. And the idea has got to be unique. And then we advocate for, verify, verify, verify. And very often it's good to do that independently so that you can listen in on what the customer's saying, how they're saying it, the words they're using, and do it objectively. And the way we do that is through a couple of rounds of primary market research. And then what we like to do is show the results of that research to the owner, entrepreneur, CEO, and then we'll hold a focus group so they can argue all those points in front of you, and you can hear what they're saying, pros and cons, and the extreme positions or the common voice that comes out of it. We also advocate for looking at a way to get to early sales at a lower cost, lower risk, and the opportunity to do it in a minimally a minimum viable prototype or testing it through a simple way without building the whole product. And we try to help and try to look at the opportunity in terms of what's the easy way to get in the door at a low cost and low risk. And then the ultimate evidence of success is building real sales and real flagship sales that you can use as a reference. And in parallel, you'll want to look for funding as you've built that traction and position yourself to be attractive to investors for acceleration. And then some of the advanced things is to build, the whole leadership team, which is not easy, especially for those that are new to scale up and leading larger companies, building the right team, the like-minded individuals and advisors and those that have the same passion and processes around it and many, many other things. So these are some of the 7 imperatives that keep coming up over and over and over again where there's failure, but doing it correctly with some independent views is extremely valuable and worth the time to what I call go slow to go fast. A few extra tips here in terms of startups. And the 7 imperatives that we looked at are really the big points, but there are a few extra tips that keep coming up in mentorships and with CEOs and founders. Some of them I've seen excellent work on business plans, and some of them have written books around their business plan that are pages and pages, and they keep getting bigger and bigger, and some are 30, 40, 50, 60 pages. And what I find and what others have found is that, it's good to give that thought and all that rigor, but then, keeping the focus plan and the summaries is really the key guide, and keeping that very short and focused, action-oriented, and down to 3 to 5 pages. It's counterintuitive, but a short plan, I find, especially with entrepreneurs, keeps them really focused because they tend to review it more often. Finding a mentor is incredibly valuable, or multiple vendors. Many mentors will spend many hours with entrepreneurs at no charge at all. and are very passionate about the industry, about helping entrepreneurs get started and succeeding. So we advocate for that. We've had a few mentors, especially more recently. They get to some level of success and they're building the traction. They've got real people on board and they're ready to put their products out in alpha, beta. And they're just getting bombarded. They don't have a lot of resources. They get bombarded with all kinds of great feedback on what to do. Doing it all is not feasible, but having that source of data and the feedback is extremely important. So we advocate for having a good feedback loop. So when you're at that point, collecting that data in a continuous way and developing a simple way to prioritize what you're going to do for the clients in solving the problem. At some point, developing centers of influence is what I call hub organizations or hub individuals. An example of that is maybe a testing organization or a standards organization or some organizations that are very well connected that'll help you spread the word. You don't need a lot of partners at the beginning, but you do need some partners that'll help you bring a whole solution forward. So clients, especially in the tech industry and also in other industries, are not willing to buy a substandard or 80% solution. Think about what you've bought. You want a whole solution. You want it to do what you need today, but you also want some room for the future. And that's the same for technology. So you'll want to surround yourself with a few partners that will help you take a solution that you've built and augment it to make it more whole or make it whole for those markets you choose to serve. And in the tech industry, they're often called systems integrators, or in more boutique or vertically aligned industries or geographical territories, they're called value-added resellers. And very often they bring something to the solution. It's a piece of hardware, or it's a camera, or it's another process, or another piece of software, but they will help you articulate a whole solution to the marketplace. We also believe there's cost-effective ways to showcase your solution. We're big believers, pre-COVID, physically attending trade shows, not with your own booth, those can be expensive, 15, 20 grand, even higher, but attending shows with a partner, maybe renting a pedestal, or these days through Zoom, like we're doing today, even more virtually presenting yourself and your wares or being part of an event. So there's many ways to showcase your products at the right point in time, or even in an early stage with a minimum viable product even before it's finished. And then finding speaking engagements to join other people's webinars, or a part of someone's trade shows, or building your own webinar when that makes sense. And believe it or not, people are trying to get very sophisticated, spend a lot of money on social media, and that works when you're at the right point in time and you have the cash. But cost effectively at the beginning, email is great to get to dozens, hundreds of people to get the word out in an early way. So we have about five or 10 minutes left or less here on the presentation, and then we'll get over to the Q&A and keep this short and sweet. But let's end with a couple of slides here. So think about, you've now presented yourself with a client problem. You have an innovative solution. You even have started building some traction. So think about when you're going to go get some investment funding, or your client is looking for money, what do angels really want to see? Well, first of all, they're looking at you, the founder, the CEO, or in some cases, your client, if you're an advisor or a mentor. And they're looking for you to be disciplined. They're looking for organized thinking. Have you done your homework? Have you shown your work? And or are you following a systematic process? The other big thing I look for myself, but many angels and investors always put very high on their list. They're looking for people with passion to solve that particular problem that they truly understand. Excuse me just a second. Sorry about that. My phones are going off the hook here. So they're looking for that passion in solving a problem that founders understand. They're looking for real market traction. So, I've seen angels, look at a pitch several times and it sounds good on paper. They seem to have passion. The founders seem to be doing their homework. But at the end of the day, before they part with their $10,000 or their $1 million or their 5 million, whatever the seed is for that investor, they're looking for evidence of success. They're looking for real sales. Name the customer. What did they say? What are they doing? Have they implemented it? Can you do that again? And then finally, they're looking for CEOs and entrepreneurs with an open mind. Does the entrepreneur, does the CEO, does this team have an open mind to learn, change, and pivot in order to solve the problem as they learn more? And these are the 4 things that keep coming up over and over again. And many of you can probably relate to that. So that's pretty much the end of the canned part of the presentation. Please submit any question you have, or we can just get into, it's a small informal group, so we can get into just voice here and have a discussion. As it works out, I did schedule some Preccelerator mentor office hours, and that's on Thursday of this week from noon to 2 o'clock. So if you'd like to continue this discussion in any way, please email me and we'll include you in those office hours. And just a reminder that our specialty is in software and digital tech in particular, but if you'd like to continue in with any of these points from today, you're welcome to join for sure. And my closing slide is that, we know you're unique. We know your business is unique. We know your clients and the way they look at things is pretty unique. And that's what we do at Pivotal Arc. And I'm delighted that I could present today. And I want to thank you sincerely for your time. And if we don't get to all the discussion, or if there's something unique about your business that you don't feel sharing in this larger group, feel free to email me privately and we can continue. So with that, Len, I'll turn it back to you, or we can together facilitate a Q&A on some of these points. I went rather quickly in respect of everyone's time here, keeping it short and sweet and sharp. But let's get into the Q&A.
So if anybody has a question, please feel free to jump in, and I'll recognize you if you're ready to go with a question.
Hi, this is Oral Kagler. I have a quick question, kind of a general one. Tony, great to see you again.
Nice to see you, Oral.
So I guess, I am intrigued by the whole idea of confirmation bias in startups, because that is I think that's just a general challenge, a societal challenge. And it's certainly a big, you and other folks have said it's a big barrier. I don't know, to what extent do you, when you try to mentor, try to get people to move away from that? I mean, do you have specific strategies? And also, is the bias that you've seen, I don't know if you can characterize it as typically, well, I know my market is this big, or I know the differentiator that I have identified is big enough to capture market from entrenched competition, and that's different. I mean, where do you see that people, maybe to put it unfairly, fool themselves a little bit in terms of kind of like looking to confirm the great news? What do you have? Are you able to characterize that, or is it really across the board? And what can you try to do to broaden it? And I'm as guilty of this as anybody, so I'm not putting myself anything above it, but just to try to move away from the incredible enthusiasm you might have for your own venture, but try to get that more objective or God view that's needed.
Yeah, Oral, well, that's a great question. Thank you so much for sharing that context. You said it very well, and it's a big deal. And we spent a lot of time consulting on that very topic. And I think there was a couple of parts to your question, so I'll try to answer them in the order that you shared them. We do a lot of that through primary market research. So when we interview a client, we understand their product, how it works, what it does, and then we boil it down to value attributes. So we ask them, what are the 7 or 8 big things that you're hoping to extract from the customer or give back to the customer in terms of value? And so those 8 to 10 points become what I call value attributes, value for the client that's independent of what they built. And then we ask questions of the client in the research in the reverse order. So we start with what are you doing today? How are you getting to the next level? What's the inhibitor? What's the problem? And what's the value of solving that problem in economic terms or whatever they're trying to do? So now we have, we know where our client is going in terms of where they want the value attributes to end up, but we don't start there. We start on the other side with the client and their view. And then we drill down and see if there's a match between what the client said with their goal, need, or problem and the way they describe it. And we do it in a couple of rounds so we don't force fit it. In the first round, we leave it totally separate from what the client told us. And we try to extract what the client said in their own words. We review that in round 1 with the client. And then we see if there's a way to match it up. So, Oral, to your first point is we try to keep it totally separate at the beginning. And we do that in 2 rounds before we get to the focus group. And that's one way. It's not, I've seen it done more mathematically with conjoint analysis and other tools, but we find that by doing it just through conversation, we get 90% of it that way. And then the other way, your point is, the addressable market, the serviceable market. And we try to estimate that once we've got 7 or 8 prospects that can be served by the client, we try to estimate how many are out there and see if in Horizon 1, version 1 of their product, we can make money. While predicting Horizon 2, Horizon 3, Horizon 4, and how big they're going to be, and try to stay profitable at every stage. So, ultimately, it's a little bit of a journey. We're estimating, but in Horizon 1, we've got to calculate it so we never run out of money. So there's got to be enough clients in Horizon 1, whether it's 10 or 20 or 40, that we're pretty sure we're not going to run out of money in Horizon 1 until we get the next round of funding. So great question, Oral. I tried to answer some or most. Did I miss part of it, or did I get some of it?
I think I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you. Great question.
Anybody else like to jump in here? Pablo, you must have a question.
Yeah, hi. Great presentation, Tony.
Thank you, Pablo.
My question actually is about market validation as well. From the presentation I got that you're suggesting that we keep it independently from us so that we don't apply our bias to the process. So does that mean that we actually have to work with a complete separate entity that will do the research for us, and then we sit, as you said, and we listen and we don't participate, we just take it in to try to really get to the core of the problem and remove the bias? That's my question. Basically, is like on a startup, one of the characteristics is that the CEO goes out there to do the customer discovery, to interview customers, but to be able to remove ourselves, then do we rely on an external service?
Yeah, great question, Pablo. I really appreciate that question. You're bang on in your observation. CEOs, executives in a company, founders, and that includes me.
Right.
We're always talking to customers. You're always going to talk to customers. And there's going to be years and years or months and months of time where you're going to be speaking to customers directly and just doing it. But at the beginning, we find that it's important to separate for a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And at the beginning, when we first started doing this, 15, 20 years ago, we let executives sit in and introduce themselves. And the confirmation bias is incredibly strong.
Right.
So much.
No, I hear you. Yeah.
That the CEO will jump on the line and say, but what he's trying to say is, and they'll jump in and try to point the answer in a certain way. It's incredible how strong that bias is. So what we do, Pablo, is we suggest that the client not sit in. Mm-hmm. We review the questions in advance with the client.
Right.
And then we turn over the tapes to the client so they can listen. Mm-hmm. And then we say to them, well, what did we miss in the first round? And then they can tell us in the second round, we need to ask this.
Right.
We let them participate in sharpening that connection in the second round. And then we do the same thing before the focus group. I really, really, really want to know this and get them to argue this because I heard this and that. So we ask our CEOs and founders to listen for those 4 weeks or whatever lapse time, those 3 rounds to listen. Because like you said, Pablo, we're always going to talk to customers as CEOs and founders. But try at that critical moment early on in a market or in a product to separate yourself from what
completely. No, I agree with you. It's actually a really important point. And there's a second part to my question, which is, how do you know when you've done enough market research? Do you have to interview an X number of potential customers, or how do you know when to stop it so that you can move on to the next phase? Yeah.
Great question. It varies by individuals. Like some want more proof and some are willing to feel it directionally and they want to jump and go. We found after a couple of rounds, even before the focus group, some entrepreneurs said, look, I'm on the wrong track.
Right.
I don't have this yet. I don't have a whole solution. I see what they mean by they have some investment protected somewhere, and I need to find a way to get that investment in data and technology or whatever they have over before they'll use my product. And I haven't thought about that. So I'm going to wait 4 or 5 months. So some of them have the maturity very early, even after a couple of rounds of 8 interviews, 16 interviews in total, to say, I'm not ready, and they will stop. And others are ready to, after the focus group, to say, look, this is enough for me. I've heard it. It's coming at me in stereo, and they're all using the words that I believe in. And I think this is here. So let's turn to selling to those same companies. So those same 8 to 10 that we interviewed, let's now go sell to them and make that the evidence of success. So there's you don't think of it as a continuum. You're building the discussion with them. You're now having them argue it with their peers in a focus group, and then you're going to roll forward and go sell to that same group. If they really have that problem, they want to be sold to, don't they? And then, you know, some of their adjacent customers. So you could, it's a very systematic way, in fact.
Interesting.
And it's to your point, when, well, you know, some are convinced a little bit earlier, some are convinced a little bit later, but by the time you go back and sell to them and build a sale and then one reference, but within that spectrum, they're going to be sold. They're going to be convinced.
Okay, thank you.
Great question.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Does anybody else? I may just call on you, so be prepared. Brett, it's good to see you on here. Are you listening? Maybe not. All right, I'm not going to put anybody else on the spot, Tony. The thing that impressed me here, and I to impress on all founders, is that first slide that talks about those 7 imperatives, and those top 5 of the 7 are so very important. And to Pablo's question, the market or initial market research is going to be done by the team. It's going to be done by the CEO, but the validation needs to probably be somebody else, where someone else is validating that idea that CEO said, okay, I've identified this problem. It seems to be big enough. I've interviewed customers. I've interviewed other people in the ecosystem. Now you need someone to validate that, because what I see a lot of times, seed or pre-revenue companies will come out to market saying they've done their market validation and that they have customers, and then they go and try and sell, and it's not there, right? Because they were in their own little sphere and they couldn't get out of it. They had tunnel vision. So it's really that market validation is really, really important, and that is one of the biggest hiccups that people forget to do before they go out, before they go to market or go to try and raise money. They haven't done that validation exercise. So it's really, really important. Anybody else have?
I'll add to that, Len. I totally agree with what you said. And the validation part of it is also, building that flagship sale, the initial sale, and prove to the angel investor or the investor overall that there's real traction. So that's part of the validation for sure.
And we see that all the time in the Preccelerator companies here. Blockforms, their initial sale was with a big national agency. That gave them the credibility to go to other customers and say, hey, your biggest competitor is using our system. This would benefit you in these ways. And that sort of helps, again, it validates the market. Having that flagship customer helps validate your market.
Yeah, absolutely. And, a lot of people are not comfortable speaking with customers, especially in the technology world. And I come from that. I used to be a programmer and shy, and I just wanted to build it. And in the beginning of my career, didn't feel comfortable speaking to customers. And entrepreneurs today like to build it, like to program, like to work with artificial intelligence and node networks and bots and computer vision. That's where their passion is. That's where their art is. And so they're not like you, Pablo, that, let's go talk to customers. You're very unique in the way you think. Many are actually introverted and they don't spend enough time out there. So they need that constant reminder that, we need to go listen externally. So.
All right. Thank you very much. Any closing comments, Tony?
Yeah, my closing comment is to thank you, Len, for allowing me to be part of this wonderful group, and remind everyone that we have office hours coming up in a couple of days, especially those that are going to be listening to this in the recorded format. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Nice to be here with you.
Tony, thank you very much for your time today. Everybody else, thank you for attending as usual. And our next program will be on February 8th. So stay tuned for that. We'll get that information out as soon as possible. And again, everybody have a great day.
Same to you, and thank you for the excellent presentation. Fantastic.
Thank you.